that they had when we didn't have
Whoops.
the Fiesta.
Did I just spin the tires?
I think so.
That's hilarious.
I love this. I love everything about the Ford Ka. I'm ready to bust like Tommy Fenstermacher did at the Scholastic Book Fair. It's small, but cavernous on the inside. It's angular in its headlights, but there's no right angles anywhere. This is 1997, and this is the beginning of Frutiger aero design language. This is from an age when Ford discovered blow-molded plastics and went buck wild. Yes, circles and ovals and circles and ovals, circles and ovals and circles and ovals and circles and ovals and inflate big and round circles and ovals and brown ball-like vents and round ball-like vents. Big round ball-like vents. Big Arador art. Make my bits so big I can't use them for anything. Hey, it's Brian. Quick reminder, our giveaway for our Cafe Racer motorcycle is still going on. Please enter it. Go to fanathem.com/regularcars. You can click the link in the description, it is right there. Someone's going to go home with their very own Cafe Racer. I love this bike a lot and you're going to like it too. So head to fanathem.com/regularcars. Buy some limited edition merch, or if you don't want to do that, just a digital download is fine. You can do that too. Thank you so much. Back to the Ford Ka. 1997 Ford Ka, or Ka, or Ka. We'll get into that. We'll come back to that. I love every curve and textured surface of this plucky British twink car. Look at this round butt! Jesus Christ, it's so bubbly. It looks like a hallucination. Your butt is making me hallucinate in front of customers. I'm about to get fired from Home Depot for excessive staring. No power steering. It doesn't really need it. In fact, it feels good to grab this little wheel and around a car park.
Don't be shy. I'm tougher than I look.
Doesn't feel like it's a problem. What?
Turn signal. It's not Japanese, so the turn signal is left. Japanese cars, it's on the right.
Every turn is meaty and wanting. Why can't we have fun little cars in the USA? Well, we did. In 1997, we had the Gen 1 Neon, great. Gen 4 Prelude, brilliant. TJ Jeep, the greatest Jeep of all. Geo Tracker, fun all day. But also in 1997, gas was under $1 a gallon in parts of the United States. That's about $2 a gallon in 2025. So driving a fuel-efficient car wasn't a necessity in the 1990s. Even if Ford of UK or Ford Europe brought the Ka to the US and Canada, this little joy bubble
Let's press our joy bubbles together at a room party, please.
would have suffered the same sales fate as the Mondeo when Ford brought it over and called it the Contour. Americans and Canadians were like, yeah, the Contour is nice, but the Taurus is pretty much the same price. It's bigger, and it also comes as a wagon with a third row. Maybe Quebec would like the Ford Ka. The engine, 1.3 liter, 4-cylinder, port fuel injected, push rod. What? A small car from the 1990s, and the only thing overhead about its engine is the rockers and valves? Modern design language and legacy drivetrain engineering? Careful, Britain. You're getting dangerously General Motors here. Ever drive an AMC or a Chrysler product with that undying reverse flow pushrod straight six engine? That's what the Ford Ka's engine feels like, with 2 cylinders missing. Big thrust of torque to get you going, but if you stay in gear and attempt to rev it out, all you get is painful noise, and the car doesn't go any faster. So the way you drive this Ka is to enjoy the torque bump, but short shift the gearbox before the engine gets winded. So here's how you shift this. You start in first, shift 2, shift 3, shift 4, shift 5, go to sleep.
All right, second gear. My foot is on the floor. I'm taking a while to rev. I don't have a rev limiter, so I don't know. I'm just shifting at whatever feels natural. Again, foot all the way on the floor. But I am joining traffic much easier. Okay, so this This is faster than a Honda today.
Good.
Well, it has twice the displacement. And into fifth. Okay, yep. It's quiet. It feels way more solid than a today. Definitely feels heavier. It's strange because you put bigger, wider wheels on it, right?
Yes.
But we still have a lot of suspension travel.
Yes.
So the car is swaying, but it holds on.
Ford K, Ford KA, Ford CAF, or K. It's like if Ford took a look at the Little Tykes Cozy Coupe and thought, what if that, but made for people who mix tapes instead of going to therapy? Now, Ford has given 3 different pronunciations that are all considered correct, whether it's Ka or K, although Ford executives supposedly consider the correct pronunciation to rhyme with cat, Ford Ka, Ford Ka. But no matter how you say it, this is an odd little car. An import with no power steering, no air conditioning, and whose greatest nemesis is oxygen and moisture. It's soft, it's unthreatening. It doesn't care about keeping up appearances. The Ka is the antithesis of modern Ford, and that alone makes it a car worth celebrating. Now, Alf, the owner, found this car on Facebook UK, and it came to the US, I'm not kidding, with the equivalent of 26,000 miles. That's all this thing has driven. No, it hasn't gone all the way around. Now it has about 33,000 miles. And the reason he got it wasn't simply due to the low mileage, but also the lack of rust, since these things crust over faster than Homer Simpson's eyes after getting LASIK. Wait a minute, why did I say the equivalent of 26,000 miles? UK, it still uses miles, doesn't it? Anyway, it's got the 1.3-liter pushrod 4-cylinder engine. It's based on the Endura E4 unit that was from the 1950s, and it was used in the Ford Anglia. The engine makes between 50 and 60 horsepower and 72 pound-feet of torque. Ooh, that's GM numbers, isn't it? And it's matched to that 5-speed manual transmission. Redline occurs at 5,675 RPM. Not that going that high would really do much. This is a get there when you get there sort of car. If you're driving the Ford Ka, it's sort of like driving a Honda today. You have no choice but to be punctual because the car will not make up the difference if you leave late. Interestingly, there is a surprising amount of good ground clearance due to the wheels Alf put on. I love these wheels because guess what? The bolt pattern for a Ford Ka is the same as a Fox Body Mustang. So these are aftermarket Fox Body Mustang wheels on a car that's way too small. Look how wider it is and how higher it sits, and they fit the wheel well perfectly. I mean, I admit the rear rubber will rub a bit on the plastic molding there of the fender. When you put weight in the trunk or if you hit a really big bump, you'll hear it, scrape on there. But that makes this thing even more planted than it normally was. I think the original wheels for the Ford Ka were about 4 inches wide, tiny, and then a Fox Body Mustang wheel is 7 inches wide. When I put this in the corners, it's like, wow, this thing really grabs. You have the car's suspension is soft, so the top is leaning, but you got the Fox Body wheels just going, nope, I got this. Alf also replaced the throwout bearing on the transmission, so you get more to your But anyway, the throwout bearings are known to go bad prematurely on Kas. The thermostat housing isn't much better, which creates complications because Ford doesn't make replacements for the Ka anymore, and these parts aren't always easy to find. It's to the point where Alf is considering just 3D printing one. So yeah, there was an odor of coolant everywhere, but I didn't really care because the beauty of this car is how specifically British it is, how it essentially exists to solve a specific British issue. And I'm not talking about these headlamp beam adapter stickers that UK drivers put on headlights to protect other drivers from being blinded when they leave the channel. I'm not even talking about the removable glove box that's basically the automotive equivalent of a hotel safe.
So yeah, just like everything else with the car, it's efficient, and I guess they figured the best way to do a glove box is to make it a universal thing. So you have the pretty side here, put your documents and stuff in there, maybe a document clip there or a clip for your sunglasses, little holder. Then a little bit of a spot down here where there are quote-unquote cup holders, but they don't hold cups. And then that just snaps in and covers everything up.
Interesting.
And there's a little fender clip. Every cat owner has to have those fender clips or else their fenders will fall off someday.
I'm not even talking about the large molded bumpers or the wheel arches for ease of repair. No, this is all about fuel economy. You see, gasoline vehicles are taxed like crazy in the United Kingdom, and this was long before electric cars or hybrids were viable. So the answer was offering greater fuel economy, even if it meant the car itself had fewer features going for it. Eliminate as much weight as possible. Do you really need that AC compressor? No, you don't. Do you really need that booster pump for power steering? No, you don't. Do you really need door cards that go across the entire door? No, you don't. The Ford Ka had appeal for being cheap, but that wallet-friendly identity extended to the driver's experience at the pump, because fuel economy is around 26.4 miles per gallon city and a healthy 46.1 miles per gallon on a highway, with about 36.2 miles per gallon combined. At a certain point, even if the car eventually falls out of style or becomes less cool, the value of what you're getting completely overrides any aesthetic concerns you might have. After all, Alf is using this as his daily. Simply put, this car offered a great deal even if you don't particularly love how it looked, because back in the 2000s, Kas were looking really out of date by then. As the 2000s rolled on, stuff became angular again, and the Fruiger Aero style is gone. The Ford Ka was also the first production car to use the New Edge design language, although it looked different than the New Edge we got in the United States. The Ka signaled a change in the companies toward polarization, because it wasn't enough to release a serrated shoebox and call it a Ford Mustang. They had to follow that up with an unsettled paint blob for European Metro that proclaimed the arrival of a new design philosophy built around generating a response, positive or negative. A lot of times, a new design approach rejects whatever preceded it, unless the previous design language was so successful that you couldn't move on from it. For example, the S550 Mustang was both a modification and a rejection of the kinetic design language that followed the New Edge. And the Ka sort of did the same thing in how it interacted with the aero design language that came before. If the aero design Fords represented the optimistic futurism of early digital integration and a deep caring for what people actually thought of that progression, then the Ford Ka was awash in the kind of 1996 Gen X nonchalance that made a person cooler. Gone was the warmth of the familiar sectional dash and interior touching surfaces. It was replaced with an identity characterized by an ellipsis inside of a thought bubble. It didn't require thought. It just existed and became cool for the same reason the local bad boy is cool, before you find out he's dating someone in junior high. When you don't prioritize appealing to anybody, you end up appealing to everybody. When the Ford Ka debuted in 1996, cars didn't typically look like this, but it ended up aligning perfectly with the direction the auto industry and pop culture was headed in 1996. It was like a drivable Tamagotchi. Small, round, trendy, modern, but with a philosophical urgency to it. Like you had to get this car now, because it could stop being cool at virtually any moment. You know how people were obsessed with those Stanley tumblers last year, but no one could really tell you why? They were just trendy, and they were cheap enough that you could go all in and not really feel like you were risking anything. That was the Ford Ka. This was introduced as a city car or an A-segment car, which was the smallest passenger car classification in Europe. It's more or less the equivalent of a Japanese K car, and the low development costs made these profitable even at a low retail price. Kelley Blue Book, and it does appear in this, had these at around the USD equivalent of $7,795 when new in 96, which comes out to about $15,531 for a new car. We haven't seen that since the Nissan Versa. But not all countries within the influence of the crown loved the Ka. This car bombed in Australia due to the lack of an automatic transmission. It was one of the best-selling cars in its class in the UK and supposedly accounted for roughly 1/5 of the entire city car market. But for as successful as the car initially was, sales declined in the 2000s with the rise of crossovers, and even if they hadn't, Ford was looking down the barrel of stricter emission standards across Europe. That pushrod engine couldn't hang anymore, and not even the relatively low manufacturing costs could justify its continued production, not without increasing the sale price and losing that budget-friendly appeal. It also didn't really fit in with the one Ford strategy, since the second generation essentially became a Fiat. Instead of sharing a platform with the Puma and the Mark III Fiesta, like it did with the first gen, the Ka started adopting components from the Fiat 500 and the Fiat Panda. While this did manage to last into 2016 as a city car and then another 5 years as a subcompact, its best years burned bright and fast. But industry trends began favoring larger cars, which meant a car as small as this couldn't really find a room in the marketplace. And it would be a shame, except I have a hard time believing the Ka retained this sort of rebelliously awkward character past the first generation. In that sense, we can hold on to this as a symbol of how good a car can be when you really don't have to think about it at all.